You're listening to New Churches Podcast, a production of Send Network on newchurches.com. We discuss all things church planting. If you're looking to take your next step toward multiplication, you're in the right place. Newchurches.com provides relevant and reliable resources for church planters, church multipliers, and disciple makers. Our growing library features pastors, planters, and church leaders like Ed Stetzer, David Platt, Trillia Newbell, Christine Hoover, Dahadi Lewis, Trevin Wax, and many others.
Welcome to another episode of the New Churches Podcast. I'm Jeff Metters, Director of Theology and Content at Send Network, and I'm here with President of Send Network, Vance Pittman.
Jeff, great to see you again today. Love getting to do this together. And I got to tell you, I'm super excited about today's episode. There's a word in the dictionary, and it's the word potential. And if you look that up in the dictionary, it's defined as expressing possibility. And the conversation that we are having today, I think, is so pregnant with possibility. And the leader that we got on today that you're about to introduce, man, he just oozes a passion for this and has with his life. So I'm super pumped because I know his passion. I know the potential that we have with what we're going to talk about today. And here's the beauty. The Ephesians says that our God is able to do exceeding abundantly above and beyond anything we can ask, think, or imagine. And the three of us on this podcast today, we got some pretty big imaginations,
Right.
And yet the potential in our Father's heart for this is even bigger. So I'm super ecstatic about what we're going to be talking about.
Yes, yeah, me too. Our guest today is Troy Nesbitt. Troy is the president of Salt Network, which is a family of churches within Send Network. What began as a parachurch ministry transitioned to a church-based ministry and eventually a church planting movement focusing on planting in major university cities, reaching both the city and the campus. And today, SALT is more than 29 churches in 15 states, engaging more than 8,000 college students this year in SALT Company Kickoffs, which is their local church college ministry. Troy is married to Pam, and together they got a bunch of kids and grandkids. Welcome to the New Churches Podcast, Troy. It's good to have you and good to meet you, brother.
Hi, it's really good to be with you guys. I look forward to spending this time together and talking about what I love and hope to get more people excited about what I love.
Well, Troy, while many others have struggled, it seems like SALT has kind of figured out the quote unquote secret sauce to planting university towns. I mean, there's so much blessing from our Lord and the work that He's giving you guys to do and how you are carrying it out. In your mind, how do college towns present these unique opportunities for church planting compared to other contexts?
Yeah, well, we say about college students, Vance, as you know, I've told you this many times, is we see them as the most reachable, the most trainable, and the most sendable people group on earth. A lot of churches struggle to reach college students, and I think it's because college students don't pay the bills. And sometimes our churches are not motivated to go after people who won't help them with their budget. But if you give yourself the long run, I think most of our pastors, if they were to ask their churches, how many of you guys really caught on fire in your college years or really were discipled in your college years or would look back on your college years and say, oh, that's the time I was doing the most for the kingdom of God, there would be a lot of hands that would go up, and especially the leadership hands. And so in my mind, movements of God have always happened on the backs of young people. And in our culture, that's going to be college students in major universities. And so I think that, we've been doing it for 40 years now, and we have some great patriarchs who did it before us that we learned from, but there's no secret to it. It's just a focus and deciding to get back to this generation.
And Troy, I love hearing you talk about this because planting churches in college towns, I mean, I don't know anybody who's doing it the way SALT Network is doing it. It's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the relationship that exists between SALT and Send and how we collaborate and work together so closely. And we're really one family doing this thing together. Because I've seen it firsthand. Like, I've been to the SALT conference. I've seen thousands of college students that are passionately pursuing Jesus, but that are exploring leveraging their life for the sake of the kingdom through being a part of church planting happening in other college towns. And I just preached a few weeks ago, prior to Easter, in Eugene, Oregon, of all places. Like, we're not talking the Bible Belt. We're talking Eugene, Oregon, in a 10-week-old church plant that had over 500 people in worship on a Sunday morning, and then baptized 17 new believers. They're reaching new believers in this town that's this unlikely place. God's got his hand on what's happening at Salt. And Troy, God's had his hand on you and how he's raised you up for this in such a unique way. And one of the things that I think the reason we use this secret sauce language, there are a lot of college ministries, but what you guys have identified as a strategy that I think produces as good as any I've ever seen, a multi-generational church that's sustainable and reproducible, that can have as its primary ministry the reaching of a college campus. I don't know anybody else doing it the way you guys are doing it.
Yeah, it's and it is crazy how God works in your life. We didn't have a plan to do this and then go out and do it. We just recognized what God actually did. And as you know, the most difficult thing in getting new churches planted is finding adults who are willing to go to new places. And the further you get down the road of your life with marriage and kids and grandkids, the harder it is to uproot and go somewhere. But college students, guess what? They come to your town to leave. And so if you win them to Christ, because they're in that liminal stage of their life where they are making adult decisions for the first time. They decide, am I going to be a Christian or not? And they're searching, they're asking that question. And, most Christian kids walk away from college in their college years. But if you get saved in your college years, or if you affirm that faith in your college years, you generally are going at the end of the road. So if you find Christ in college, and then you get in a college ministry that disciples you to be a mature believer, you're already going. And so now it's not a matter of sending them, it's a matter of helping them know where they should go. And so, we say about church planting, it's not where you go, it's who you go with. And we never get out of the junior high stage. Like if I get invited to something, I want to know who invited me or who else is going to be there. And so college students are already going. So we already have the goers. They're already adults. They're going to get real jobs with real salaries for the first time in their life. And so even though we have community people, most of those community people are recent graduates who recently got married, getting their first job, establishing the habits of the church. And so it is extraordinary what's happening in Eugene because we have a lot of community people that are already coming. But most of our community people in our early stages of churches are brand new community people, newly married, without kids. And if you go to a lot of our churches, there might be 200 people that are not college students, but you might say, oh, wow, this is a lot of college students, but they're really not. They're just young professionals who moved to the city to help plant the church.
Yeah.
So Troy, tell us how it happens. Like when you get to a city, you send this team out there, what kind of partnerships do you form on the local level? How do you leverage those for the sake of church planting efforts? What does it look like when you send that team out and they get to the field?
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about our strategy, Vance, and I want everybody to adopt this strategy. We're not winning. We're losing at every campus. The most reached campuses in our country still would have less than 20% of the students who attend anything Christian, and the vast majority of them would have under 5% of anybody that attends anything Christian. And so we already have the targets of places that we want to go. And so in a church planting movement, a lot of times you're trying to figure out where's the best places to go. Well, we just say, where's the university? Do we have a church there? If not, we want to get there. And so then in our college ministry, our conference, as you know, you've been there, it's all about where's the next place we're going. We want to be on mission for the gospel. We're sending over 300 college students internationally this year. We want all of our student leaders to go. And so we try to create a culture of sending. And even I've had freshmen come up to me saying the year that they're going to graduate and asking the question, where are we going to be planting that year? And so you have to have a culture first. And so it can't be a novel idea to plant a church, I read in a book one time, it said most churches are eunuchs. They don't ever even think about the possibility of reproducing. But if you get in the culture of Salt Company, and if you're a church in our network and you're not thinking about church planting, people are saying, what are you doing? If you're a young married couple, your parents are asking, when are you going to have kids, right? And so that is already in our culture. It's woven in the dough. And so then once that's in the culture, now you create community in our churches. Our church in Ann Arbor, Michigan, when we planted there, we had 13 different churches that sent people there. But they had already been trained in the system of Salt Company, discipleship, and all of the things that we do to prepare them as disciples. And so they already felt like they were connected. It's really hard in a church planting movement for a church to create a national identity. But if you think about Campus Crusade for Christ and Navigators and InterVarsity, they have an identity that's beyond a local church. Those guys love a local church and they are supportive of the local church, but the identity that we have is not from church to church. It's from Salt Company to Salt Company, because that's where our graduates are being trained. And so when they go, they want to know, where can we start another Salt Company, and where can we do that from the base and foundation of a local church? So
Jeff, I know you got another question you want to get to, but for our listeners' sake, I want to do this real quick. For the listener that is not familiar with Salt, tell them the difference between Salt Company and Salt Network. Troy, what is that?
Yeah, Salt Company is the college ministry of the local church. Salt Network is the parachurch organization that partners with our churches to help create this national brand and national identity. So we don't like this term, but we say it all the time. It's almost as though Salt Company is a franchise that's locally owned by a local church, but every Salt Company looks very similar. So we have a set play that they all run and certain things that they all do. And so if our churches are from A to Z, our Salt Companies would be, from G to P, right? They are very similar and look the same. And then we work with, I think we have 185 Salt Company staff. We help train all those staff and keep pretty close eyes on all they're doing. But our churches are all autonomous and, run by local elders and local leadership.
It's such a vital ministry, such a vital mission and vision. This is the next, generation of leaders all across our country. Some of them already leaders in our country, and we've got to be upstream and not wait for them to graduate and then, move into the suburbs or move into an urban context and then kind of try to reach them then, but to reach them now and to lead them to Christ now and disciple them now. And you mentioned kind of the transient nature and the ebb and flow of college life. So what role does discipleship play in the church planting process in these college towns?
Yeah, I think, Jeff, it's vital. I think all of us who have journeyed down the path of Jesus have some season of our life in which we look back to and say, that was the anchor point for me. I grew up in the church. My dad's a pastor. There's never been a day he didn't pray for me, but there were some days that he was crying out to God, for me, because he had no idea which path I was going to take. But it was, when I was 17 years old, senior in high school, and then 17 to 22, when the gospel really took root in my soul. And I still look back on those days. I memorized more scripture during that time. I had more insight during that time. I had the most energy in that time. And honestly, guys, if you think about it, Jesus' disciples were most likely teenagers, right? So the disciples, we often see them as bearded 30-year-olds, but that would have been so countercultural. And so if you examine even what Jesus did in Matthew 17 with the drachma tax, the temple tax, he only paid for himself and Peter, but all the disciples were there. And according to Deuteronomy, what that indicates is they likely were all under the age of 21. Peter was the only one who was married. Jesus referred to them as little children. That's not something you do to your peers. The reason he didn't start his ministry until he was 30 is because you couldn't be a rabbi until you were 30. But the disciples, it wasn't a weird thing to have disciples. It was weird to call them apostles, but they were all, this phase and stage of life. And so even what Jesus did when he trained his men, he did it for 3 years when they were making a decision, what is our life going to be? And so whether you're an engineer, an architect, or a lawyer, or a teacher, whatever you are, we are training our people to be on mission for the kingdom of God from the very open window when they're trying to decide, who am I going to be when I grow up? And so what they're all deciding is we're going to be disciple makers. And so if you teach them to disciple their peers, then when they get in on the workforce, they already have that in their DNA and they reach their peers in whatever environment that they're in. And so to answer your question, why is it so important? Because, all of your good habits that you develop early that can continue for the rest of your life, that's the best time to develop them. And so we're trying to propagate that in all of our churches.
And Troy, even hearing you say that, I'm reminded of my own story. That's my story. I came to Christ as a freshman in college, and it was in college that I began to be discipled and poured into and mentored. And I think, where I am today and all that God's allowed me to be a part of, the roots were established in that season of life that you're articulating. And to be honest, even in my own story, even though I've told my story 1,000 times, I've never really thought about it like you just articulated it, the importance of what we're doing. We're talking about reaching college students. And Troy, our vision at Send Network is to be a family of churches, planting churches everywhere for everyone. And I know you're targeting college towns with SALT, but that's also contributing to the broader mission of God, which is reaching unreached people groups all over the world. How does that connection happen between what's happening in college towns and the nations being reached?
Yeah, so one of the fun things about being young is you're trying to get and gain experiences. And so I don't even know how many student leaders we have now in Salt Company, but we don't require them to do certain things, but we raise the expectation bar. We want every student to spend at least a summer overseas on mission, where we're trying to plant churches internationally. And so you know how it is, guys. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. And when you're raised in this culture, you can become Christianized, and you can become just isolated and insulated from what the world looks like. But when you go overseas and you see the poverty, and you see the brokenness, and you see the lostness, it moves your heart to be on mission for the gospel. So if we, once again, weave it into our culture where all of our students are spending a summer overseas, the expectation of all of our student leaders is, where are you going to go? And which summer are you going to go to do that? And once you've done that, man, it opens your heart for the international students on your campus. It opens your heart and it kind of whets your appetite for what God has for you next.
So, Troy, for the pastors and church leaders who are considering planting in a college town, maybe they've got some affinity, they've got some connection, they've got opportunity, whatever it may be, or it's just on their heart. What advice or encouragement would you offer to those who are considering planting in these college settings?
Oh, I would say go for it. If you're a fisherman, you got to go somewhere where there are fish. If you're gonna search for gold in a stream, you better go where there's gold, right? We're not panning our streams here in Iowa for gold because there's no gold in it. And so what I would say, the university students all over the world, and especially in North America, they're piled up, and they are the gold mine for planting churches. They're the gold mine for adults coming to Christ. They're the gold mine for discipleship. And so if you're thinking about it, stop thinking about it and just do it. If you make a priority to reach college students and disciple them and send them, then that is the secret sauce. That is the gold mine of future leaders for the church. And so we need more people going after them. So I would encourage everybody to do it.
I have so been encouraged by my experience, whether it's in Ankeny, Iowa, and being a part of a church there that's been planted, or the stories coming out of Madison, Wisconsin, or what's happening in Eugene, Oregon, or my own son-in-law who is now planting in Las Vegas, Nevada with my daughter as his wife. They're planting a church there to reach the campus at UNLV. I've just never seen anybody that has the ability to plant such an incredible college ministry that results in such a multi-generational church. These are not college churches. These are multi-generational churches. The church in Eugene, Oregon, I was just there, had 90 children in their children's ministry. That's not a college ministry. That's a multi-generational church that has been planted out of targeting a college campus with a strategic ministry. So if you got a passion for this, you need to go check out what's happening at Salt Company and with Salt Network.
Troy, what would be the best way for people to go check out what's happening there with Salt Network? Where would you tell people to go?
Yeah, if you just Google the Salt Network, we have a set website, and that'll get you all the information. That'll get you started. You can certainly reach out to myself or to Ryan Hill, who's executive director, Courtney Veer, who she directs Salt National. So we'd love to hear from anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Troy. We're excited to partner together for the cause of the kingdom, and excited to see all that God is going to do there with Salt Network.
Well, we are so grateful for Send, and Kevin Ezell has been such a blessing, and now getting the chance to work with Vance is, wow, we're having a great time together.
Well, thank you for listening to the New Churches Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the New Churches Podcast, brought to you by Send Network. If you like what you heard, take a few minutes to rate and review us or share this episode with a friend. It's the best way to show your support. To find more reliable resources to start your new church well, visit newchurches.com.